What's going on today, my fellow A-plusers? Welcome back once again to a brand new episode. It is I, your Morphinominal host, as always, Adam Perez, certainly coming through once again for a new Toku Tuesday around here on A+ Morphinominal, as we're set to go ahead and get into Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger, episode number 3. Very early on, to say the least, in this Super Sentai season. First episode, absolutely loved. Second episode, enjoyed it, to certainly say the least. Episode number 3 is what we're definitely going to go ahead and get into and talk with you guys, as we have yet another Zenkaiger that is, in fact, joining the team here in Majin this week. Since we've had this slow burn, if you will, in regards to the introduction to Zenkaigers, I think we had the idea that we were certainly going to get brand new characters this week, or a new member, and Majin certainly steps up to the plate, and we'll definitely go ahead and talk about that this week as well, ladies and gentlemen. But before we do, as always, just remember, these are just my A+ opinions, but at the end of the day, I want to know yours, so please let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below after this particular video winds up airing, ladies and gentlemen. So listen, I've been a big fan of the Tojigears and certainly how they've been working over the past episode or so. Ijirude, who we wind up seeing last week, the chief technician officer or whatever the case may be for the Tojitendo, did in fact go ahead and create this, really harnessing the power and the themes of the worlds that the Tojitendo have in fact captured, and allowing them to be harnessed kind of into their henchmen, and really creating a monster of the week, if you will. And so this week we wind up getting Ice World. Now, I gotta say, just from the previews alone, just the concept art that you kind of see, the designs, right? The idea of Tokyo sort of iced over and stuff, really cool concept and design. I absolutely love the idea that they were going for it. But if I had one complaint about this episode, guys, for me at least, again, this is just me, the execution for it just did not work. I'm sorry. I as much as I tried to enjoy this episode, and there are moments of this episode that I definitely enjoyed, and I will definitely talk all about it, but the one big thing that I got to talk about that really just took me out of this episode just was all the green screen that we wind up getting in here. The idea of literally being able to tell what's real and what's not, right? It's just the idea of just a blank picture, and then you've got, not a blank picture, but a well-designed concept art and design of Ice World, or whatever case may be, photo, and then the characters sort of in it, and then the camera is just kind of moving around and things like that, while everything else is stationary except for our actual characters. So it definitely felt very much like it was on a green stage, or whatever the case, a green screen stage, or whatever the case may be, for them to go ahead and add all these the special effects and things like that you wind up getting. So for me, it really took me out of the episode. It truly did. It was one of those things where I appreciate what they were going for. I appreciate the idea of wanting to embark on something that, like, I don't know how you could even pull something like that off in a practical set, but I personally would have appreciated it more in a practical set, right? Like, if you really wanted to try and bring this Ice World to the forefront, then I would have thought that maybe they would have actually created additional icicles and icebergs, and, took the time to decorate these buildings and things like that. But, one, I don't know the budget. Two, I don't know the time frame that they have to certainly do all this. So it felt very like a very ambitious idea. And because of the fact that it was such an ambitious idea, I would have liked to have seen them put more effort into it, instead of just a green screen and then our people in front of it. For me, it just didn't work. It gave me really odd angles, super close-ups that I didn't really care to have so much. If there was any sort of bright spot to the terrible background effects, it was probably the sledding. I actually wind up really enjoying the sledding as they're going back and forth from destination to destination, from whatever Majin's fortune telling is certainly telling them which direction to go in. So in that regards, I appreciated all the sliding around and the sledding effects and things like that we wind up getting. But other than that, man, the Ice World concept, while ambitious, and I'm glad, I'm thrilled that they at least concept art wise, they had the designs that they wanted. I wish they kind of really put that same ambition towards actually creating practical effects or a practical set that looks like you're in an ice world, if you will, right? Go above and beyond if you're going to try and pull off something like that, instead of just plastering a special effect on that you can clearly tell is just completely out of place. So it honestly did take me out of the world for the most part in regards to that. But I will say this, character-wise, I was here for it, man. The story of Majin, I absolutely fell in love with, right? The idea of her being misplaced from Kikai-topia, very much like a ton of the other Kikai-noids, but unfortunately for her, being misplaced out of this world into a world that she doesn't recognize, nor does she know anybody here as well, right? So she's very much feeling alone. I'm not sure exactly how much time has passed. I think they said it was maybe about a month or so has passed since the Kikai-noids sort of came to this particular world. So she's been roaming around for a whole entire month without knowing anybody here. So talk about just feeling abandoned, very confused, and very lonely. But I love the fact that she does end up bumping into somebody that she does recognize, and that is in fact Zyuran, or Mr. Zyuran as she winds up calling him. And I love the fact that they already have sort of a past together, a little bit of a connection, right? It's not the case that these Kikai-noids don't all know each other, but clearly some of them definitely do. And so I love the fact that we get to see that there used to be some sort of connection between these two. I think he mentions that they were once neighbors when they lived back on Kikai-topia. Now, for me, while I don't necessarily think that they probably hung out all the time, right? Zyuran definitely came across very much as the adult figure kind of in that neighborhood, right? Helping out with the kids, playing with the kids to kind of keep them entertained and things like that. So Zyuran just kind of recalls her as being a little kid, right? He's like, oh, I remember when she was just this tall, and kind of impressed at the woman that she's kind of grown up into, if you will. I don't know exactly how old Majin is, but the way that he talks about her is like, she was here to here. So I'm thinking kid to adult, at least, you know what I mean? So, or at least like early 20s, maybe Majin's in, who's certainly, or late teens, like 18, 19 for all I know. But I do love the immediate connection there, and you can clearly tell that it certainly calms Majin down just a little bit, makes her a little bit more comfortable, but she is very much sort of the shy type, right? I believe Zyuran kind of refers to her as what does he say? Bashful, reserved, and a quiet little girl is how he winds up remembering her, at least. And it certainly seems as though a lot of that has carried over to her, even as she in fact has kind of has in fact grown up. So I just thought it was really cool that they had a sense of community on Kikai-topia, the idea of them sort of living normal lives, and that they actually grew up with each other for a short period, to say the least. So yeah, I immediately love the connection between them already. We also get to see here that she is in fact a little bit of a fortune teller. She may not necessarily be that great at it, but it is definitely a hobby that she certainly enjoys. And so Kaido trying to, not necessarily puts her to the test, but just wants to see what she's certainly capable of doing in regards to allowing them to find this ice world. And we get to see just the adventure that winds up ensuing in here. But I will say this, even though, again, we do get to the idea that she's reserved, bashful, and quiet, I love the fact that she is willing to stand up for herself when she absolutely has to, right? The fact that Gaon is kind of, I don't want to say egging her on, but just being blunt and just completely honest about the idea that he's like, look, I'm only here because Kaido's here, right? Like, this stuff is stupid anyway. I don't know why people believe this stuff in the first place. And I love the fact that she stands up for herself, right? Like, just because you don't necessarily understand why somebody loves to do what they do or is connected to something doesn't give you the right to just shit all over that person's joy and things that they really enjoy doing in their lives. Just because of the fact that there's a disconnect between you and their hobby doesn't mean that you need to kind of bash somebody for what they certainly love or enjoy to do. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that we immediately sort of get that pushback from Majin to kind of put sort of Gaon in his place. And if I can just do a quick honorable mention, I'm just not a big fan of Gaon. And I'm a little bit bummed. I am a little bit bummed because going into this season, just at least character design wise, I think he's got one of the cooler designs for sure. I even complimented the idea of like when he morphs and he, you know, goes to his henshin and stuff, when he does his roll call, that he like roars his name and stuff. I think that's so cool. But the idea of him just being like this follower, if you will, right, only doing things that Kaido wants to do, being really negative towards other Kikaitopia, like Kikainoids and things like that, bringing other people down because you just don't understand what it is that they're kind of into. That type of stuff, I just don't know. It just doesn't hit me right at all. You know, I'm pretty sure that there's probably going to be a lesson learned for Gown and some character growth for him, if you will. The idea of like disliking somebody of his own culture or race or robotics, whatever you want to call it, seems a little bit odd to me. I don't want to say it's odd because, trust me, there's plenty of people out there in the world today that certainly act a lot like Gown, but it is something that certainly rubs me the wrong way, and he's just not a character that I'm really fond of. I mean, I appreciate the fact that he clearly cares for animals and human life, but the idea of like, it would be different if you didn't like the Kikainoids from the Tojitendo, but the fact that you just don't like any Kikainoids, like, have you looked in the mirror lately, bro? Like, I don't know if you're understanding that you're a Kikainoid as well. So it does rub me the wrong way. It does rub me the wrong way. So for me, Gown, not my biggest, but I really have enjoyed Zyuran. I love his enthusiasm. I love just that fatherly figure now that he certainly is coming across and giving in here, and just the idea of him really expressing his heroism. For me, I've really come to enjoy Zyuran, so I'm really glad that him and Majin at least certainly do have an effect. But again, yeah, just not a fan of Gown so far, but maybe he'll end up growing on me. Maybe he'll have some really great sort of character moments that he'll sort of further develop in regards to just outside of the fact of just kissing Kaido's ass the whole entire time, you know what I mean? So we'll see what happens there. But I also love the fact, because you guys know I love flashbacks, I also love the fact for Majin in here that we get to see exactly how her fortune telling is certainly working, right? And I love the comparison that Kaido winds up making sort of with Majin's story, a fortune telling. The idea that, you know, fortune telling doesn't always have to be right. It's more or less like a suggestion, if you will, right? To kind of let you know maybe what you certainly have to look forward to, or what could potentially be for you. And it's up to you whether or not you want to believe in it or not, right? Is that a path you want to push yourself down, or do you not want to go down that path? And so I love the idea that Majin at least expresses the idea that, it's one of the things that has helped her get over some of her shyness and her reservedness. The idea of seeing her when she was a little girl, right? The whole picking the dandelion and she loves me not, right? But utilizing it as to, should I get involved in playing with these kids, right? Should I go? Should I not go? Whatever the case may be. All that comes from the idea of being able to see a fortune and see if that's the route that she wants to go and see what happens. And it's pushed her into a ton of things in her life, not only just making friends back in Kikaitopia, but in this episode and becoming a Zenkaiger as well, you know, wanting to look at her fortune and make that decision to push herself forward and kind of get involved, despite the fact that she's truly not the physical type. She clearly is making a connection with Kaido certainly said to her, and I do love the fact that it's pushing her towards making those great decisions in here. And another quick honorable mention does go to yet another Kikainoid firing prematurely. I will say this one I saw coming. Because the moment that she gets the Geertlinger and she points the actual, like, she points the barrel at herself, I'm just thinking she's gonna shoot herself in the face. Like, she's gonna shoot her whole face off, and then just before they get to turn, she's like, boom, just barely, like, it traumatized her. She's like, what the did I just do? Like, she's just frozen there for a minute. And I love that everybody comes and checks on her and stuff, like, no, let's teach her how to use this. So I love the fact that all the Kikainoids have no clue what they're doing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Vroom is going to do when he gets his Geertlinger. Maybe he'll be the only one that actually gets it right. Who certainly knows? But I do find it funny. I probably would have preferred her to actually have shot another another Kikai Noid on the Tojitendo side, but there was actually something just really hilarious about this moment that we wind up getting here, where she literally almost shoots her face off. Like, this is why you don't let kids handle guns, all right? So yeah, she's definitely the youngest one of the group, to say the least, but I thought that was rather interesting. I will also say this. Another honorable mention, since we did have some action in here, getting everybody the opportunity to go ahead and morph. Really, Majin looked great in her morphing sequence as well. But I also love the idea that we use another power set in here in Tojigears, which was one of my favorite Super Sentai seasons, definitely up in my top 5 for sure. And while they didn't necessarily use a specific technique, I think they at least did do sort of their linking up, which I was always a big fan of, especially for Tojigears when they did their roll calls and stuff, all like ching, like putting down their spikes or spiking themselves together sort of thing. I thought that was pretty cool, and to see them kind of go all over the place and take out some of the enemies this week. So I really love the way that they used the Tojigears gear. But the last thing I do want to talk about with you guys, though, has to be the Tojitendo. I am really fascinated by just the two generals in here, Iridu along with Barishitara, I believe, is the other commander or general that we have here. So it really becomes a big question among the Tojitendo as to whether or not the Tojigears are in fact impactful. Are they at least doing what they certainly were expecting them to do? Clearly, there certainly seemed to be some doubt as to Iridu, as to if this was in fact going to even work for him in the first place. But we do see it coming together rather well. But so much to the point to where I do find it interesting that the main boss asks Barishitara how, what he believes in, if it's working out for him. And of course, he's got to be like the biggest dude in the room. So he's like, yeah, I don't even need those. I'll take care of these guys without these Tojigears. So there definitely seems to be, even, which is interesting, even because even the fact that I think he even complimented Iridu in regards to the idea of like, wow, I can't believe that they actually worked. But apparently Bara over here certainly thinks that he can definitely do the job without them. But I will find it fascinating to see what they think about the Tojigears now that they're going to eventually find out that these worlds are being liberated each time, right? Vroom noticed it in episode 2 with the Mushroom Topia. Once that enemy was defeated, that world got liberated. Now we see Ice World getting liberated once the monster is done. And if anything, I feel like that means that they're being released sort of back out into the galaxy, out into the universe, if you will. And that's definitely got to go against everything that Tojitendo certainly wants, right? Like, they spent all this time capturing these things within their gears, and now you're telling me when the monster is destroyed, these worlds are getting liberated and being brought back out into the universe. So while they probably thought highly of them, I am curious if they're going to make any significant changes now that they know that these worlds are being liberated anytime that their monsters are in fact destroyed. It's kind of like reversing all the hard work that you just put in, right? So maybe there is some work to certainly be done with the Tojigears. I just found it interesting that the Tojitendo even brought it up as to, fill out the survey. What do you guys think? How are these working out for you guys? You know what I mean? But other than that, we got some really great debuts here. Great to see Majin, but not only Majin, but also her mecha as well, her transformation. We got the combination this time of Zenkaiger Zyuran Majin, which is in fact Zyuran and Majin combined, the T-Rex and the dragon, which even the dragon by itself looked fantastic. I know I gave the T-Rex a lot of really hard time in the very first episode, but for me, the dragon looks really fantastic just in that form. And I think it's a little bit easier because of the fact that it flies, so I don't necessarily have to worry about it jumping over buildings and doing flips and stuff, right? It feels more natural, I think, for me at least, checking out the dragon. But love the combination. I really do love the Zords along with the Zord battle. And again, for me, the Zord battle in this episode looked even better in this Ice World sort of format that they had, better than what it was when they actually had the regular Zenkaigers running around town and going up and down the street sort of thing. So that same type of effort that they put towards the set for these gigantic Zord battles, I really would have loved to have seen that same level of effort for an actual practical set for our teammates to actually be on, instead of just plastering it with the the special effects. So for me, again, this episode was just okay. Wasn't the biggest fan of Gown. Wasn't the biggest fan of the Ice World, the look of the world, because it took me out of the episode. I appreciate the ambition, but again, it kind of fell flat for me. And really, my saving grace for this had to be all the Majin stuff we got, along with the Megazord battle and the mecha transformations that we wind up getting. But so for me, a little bit fallen by the wayside, but that's okay. I still am a big fan of Kaido. I really do appreciate Zyuran. Excited to see what Majin's going to turn into. Vroom, I cannot wait to see how he's kind of brought into this group, considering the fact that he does come from the Tojitendo side. Like, how long has he been working with them? How connected? Like, does he even care to be there as their cleaning person, right? Like, I would love to see what his mindset and his personality is towards the enemy in a certain sense. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it, despite me not being the biggest fan of this episode. But if you guys certainly were, listen, I'm not here to yuck on your yum. I'm not here to tell you this episode was crappy and you need to believe me. No, however these episodes hit you guys, that's how it hits you. For me, it just wasn't. I wasn't the biggest fan, but I'm certainly coming back for next week for sure, because I definitely am intrigued to see what happens with the remainder of this season. And there are a couple of episodes under its belt already that I am a fan of, so we'll see what happens. But guys, listen, at the end of the day though, I definitely want to go ahead and know your thoughts. So let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below, and we definitely will be back later on this week with other content for you, from Go Kaiju reaction videos, Kamen Rider Saber certainly coming your way as well, and then of course we'll be back every Saturday live at noon Central Time to break down the world of Power Rangers and Tokusatsu news and Dino Fury reviews as well. But until next time, guys, do me a big favor. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and as always, keep it A+. Full throttle, non-stop. We'll see you guys later.